broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. Glad you could join us. It's time for our expert webinar of the month, and tonight we have on with us shortly Mr. Blake Allen with Allen Realty. And Blake is a specialist in very creative 1031 exchanges. So he's going to be sharing some of those awesome things with us here in a little bit. By the way, Blake, Andrea is on as well too. So if you want to pick her brain or put her on the spot, just let me know and I'll take her off the mute. Because Blake has helped Andrea do what, at least 2 deals, correct? If not more?
Yeah, we've done, goodness, half a dozen deals, I would think.
Oh, okay. So a lot more.
Welcome everybody. I am Blake Allen. I'm with Allen Realty in Manitou Springs, Colorado, which is just right near Colorado Springs. And what I do is, the main focus of my business is equity marketing and exchanging. I'm a real estate counselor. I've been doing this for, going on 35 years now. And for about the last 15 or so, I've specialized in these kind of unusual transactions. You see my name, Blake Allen, there, CCIM and EMS. CCIM is a Certified Commercial Investment Member. That's a group of, I think there are 15 or 20,000 of us throughout the world. It's a National Association of Realtors designation. It's a very, it's top designation for commercial real estate. The EMS is I'm not an emergency medical specialist. I am an equity marketing specialist, and that's a designation from the National Council of Exchangers and one of the national marketing groups I go to. Here is a little bit of reference information for me, my address, email address, phone number. National Council of Exchangers is a group of real estate brokers that meet 4 times a year in Las Vegas. We meet about 100 brokers and we trade property. We also have a network and a similar commercial information exchange like you do on an MLS. The second group, and I'm a member on the board of directors of National Council of Exchangers. Society of Exchange Counselors is an invitation-only organization. When I refer to the SEC, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the Securities Exchange Commission, unless I specifically talk about them. But this is Society of Exchange Counselors. It's a group that's been around for 60 years, the same amount of time as the CCIMs, and they're more focused on the people than the property. We also have local groups, the Mile High Exchangers and Pikes Peak Exchangers, and there are groups all over the country that meet. These are broker-only deals, and we sit down and trade client property. And so that's the marketplace that I work in. Most of the inventory and the deals you're going to see here came through, some association through one of these exchange groups. Where we're located is Colorado Springs. This is a map of mostly of Colorado. The Front Range you'll see here in the middle along I-25 corridor is one of the fastest growing areas in the United States. It's like a third coast. And like my dad told me, there will be a city from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, that's part of what's going on in our market. It's a very fast moving market. Let me start, you guys everybody here should know the basics of a 1031. If you haven't taken a basic 1031 class, take one. I'm certain that Anthony has made that opportunity available more than once for you. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. When you look at this slide, on the left side you have a property. It could be any kind of property, real estate. Could be land, could be a shopping center, could be a single family house. It could be a 30-year lease, for instance, but don't want to get too complicated. You sell your initial property for cash, pay off your debt. Traditionally, the remnants of the cash go to the qualified intermediary. You identify your property, and then you've got 45 days to identify it and 180 days to close. You go buy a slightly bigger property, generally with a little more debt. Now, you can always add cash if you don't want to add more debt, or if you don't have enough debt on the property that you have. That's always a possibility that people forget. But this is the basic structure. When Mr. Starker sued the government, we got the right to do this in a deferred means, the things we've been doing for years. And this is a great tool in a way to sell for cash, not pay the taxes by giving it to a qualified intermediary, and then go buy another property with it without taxation. I think everyone's hopefully familiar with that. So what is equity marketing? equity marketing is a little bit different. When we talk about exchanging, everybody thinks of 1031 exchanges, the traditional way we went there. That's just a buy and sell marketplace. That's just a purchase and a sale using the qualified intermediary as the vehicle. We use some of those 1031 tools in equity marketing and exchanging, but it's very different. That's just one of the rules that the government gives us that allows us to do what we're doing. Equity marketing is buying what one wants with what one has. Okay, and often one does not own the property in its entirety. Often there's debt. So we saw that on the 1031 slide we just did before. There's a property with debt. Equity marketing, buying what one wants with what one has, is also, if you're buying with cash, that's what you're doing. You're marketing the cash that you're giving, which is an unfigured out set of benefits, future benefits for somebody, and doing it that way. When we're equity marketing, with real estate, we're talking about trading the equity portion from this past slide, the equity portion onto something else, making sure we follow the rules with the debt, but really we just focus on the equity because that's the part of the property that we own. Now, exchanging is a little bit different. Equity marketing is the process of taking our portion of it. Exchanging is trading one set of benefits for another set of benefits. It's what happens when we're buying and selling with cash, if we take the cash onto what we buy with it. But trading one set of benefits for another set of benefits. We'll focus on benefits a lot in this discussion and what that means. The bottom is an underlying principle of all real estate, buy-sell real estate, any kind of transaction. No deal will ever close unless each party is better off after than they were before. No deal is going to be, nobody's going to walk away if they don't think that they're getting a deal that works. So with buy-sell, it's if I get a certain amount of cash, I feel like I'm better off than if I own the property. And for the buyer, they'd rather have the property than that pile of cash. And it's real easy when the pile's small because a lender's bringing all the cash. But the whole principle that I want everybody to understand are these last two, or actually all three of these: equity marketing, buying what one wants with what one has; exchanging is trading one set of benefits for another; and then nobody's going to close unless everybody wins. The basic benefits of real estate, these basic benefits of real estate: income, appreciation, depreciation, and amortization. I'm pretty sure everybody here is aware of these benefits. I always remind people, remember, cash is not a benefit in and of itself. It can buy different benefits. These benefits we're showing here are the basic benefits of income property, the kind of multifamily property folks are interested in. At the bottom, I say making money on real estate versus investing for profit in real estate. This is the different sets of benefits sought in syndications generally. So what Anthony teaches you, a lot of times you'll have investors looking for yield, and you'll have people who want to find deals and make money off of real estate by doing some sort of work. And that's what we're doing. You folks do it within the transaction. We do it sort of among the transactions by matching people with certain needs with people who have the benefits that they seek, and vice versa. So other than these, ones that we all know, income, appreciation, depreciation, amortization, we've all heard that 1,000 times. What are the specific benefits and motivations that make these transactions happen? So what I want to focus on, and why I called this the COVID edition, is we're going to use this unusual marketplace we're in to discuss some of the things that we do under normal circumstances. But it's always, there are always benefits and motivations to every transaction. And transactions with the lower the amount of benefits and the lower the motivations, the less likely they're going to close. I'm a real estate broker, so I do focus on the transactions closing, finding the deal, getting the deal closed. And then, of course, you all have the hardest task, which is owning real estate. And that's not what we're talking about here. So when we're buying and selling real estate, there are geographic considerations. Sometimes we want to move somewhere else. A bunch of different reasons, as you see there. After 27 years of residential, you don't have any more depreciation. Turns out we all get older. Sometimes we get sick of tenants. Sometimes we want to get more involved or less involved, depending on if we have a regular job. Sometimes we want work to, involved in the real estate. But the basic bottom line, and that's why I put it down on the bottom line, is the benefit a seller is seeking is a seller seeks to go out of title. A lot of times we have impasses because we can't offer them enough benefits that's better than what they have, but they want to have a different set of benefits or there wouldn't be a seller. Their property wouldn't be for sale. Okay, so benefits and motivations drive the market. When we're talking about a seller carry, or anything in life, it's not about you, it's about them. Okay, the seller doesn't care what you want. They care about what they want. How do we get these sellers to talk to us about seller carry and rather than just giving them the amount of cash? Now, as I always say, if you can buy the property, you have enough cash that you can buy the property with cash or a new loan for a price that's acceptable to you, and or if you're a seller, you can sell for a price that's acceptable for you in cash, and you can replace it by buying in cash, then do a regular 1031. A lot of times it's hard to come up with the 30% down on a $5 million multifamily property, for instance, in order to get the bank excited about it. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So one thing I always say is don't just send blind offers out there to everybody in the world. Communicate with the people. Give them a call on the phone rather than email to them. Don't text them about their property. Get to know, because if somebody has the impression that you're such a big shot, and a lot of times people try to talk about what a big shot they are and how many deals they've done. They don't care. The seller, this is the most important thing for them a lot of times. Now we have different sellers. Investors with a bunch of property, don't care nearly as much, but that's probably not always the case, not the normal case. So get to know what the sellers need through broker-to-broker communication. It's, everybody needs a good broker. I'm obviously biased with this, but those sellers, you're probably not going to know it's for sale. If you're just coming to somebody who doesn't have it on the market for sale already, they may not, they're certainly not very motivated. They weren't motivated enough to call a broker to sell it. But you should have your broker talking to their broker, because that's the proper way to communicate what the seller's benefits sought are and what they're really looking for, because they might be in trouble or they might be in a great position and you don't really know, and you don't want to destroy your chances by making some assumptions on your first communication and blowing it. Now, if you happen to meet them or you know them, that's a different thing. You got special circumstances, that's great, but really to get the deal done, have the broker communicate with the broker. And also work with sellers that know a note is better than cash, okay? And I'll go over that. If we look at it, we all know that it is objectively, but cash brings immediate liquidity. And I say often with taxation, I put a pretty negative spin on the cash. We all want the cash, okay? We know that. We can go buy a Corvette with the cash. We can do whatever we want with the cash. But it is, a depreciating asset, and it doesn't bear interest like a note. So we need to find sellers that know that there are benefits better than just cash, and a note being one of the things. Cash is the depreciating asset that comes with the burden of taxation. Okay, one thing I tell people a lot now, and why I've been selling a lot of land and why real estate's so popular now with this crisis coming on, is you can't print more land. They just printed about $10 trillion. So we probably can expect some inflation, and that's the depreciation of cash. So when you figure your overall accumulation of capital or your time value of money, remember that in a year from now, our cash is worth less than it is now. The other side of it, though, is cash is liquid and universally accepted. Anybody wants it. Everybody wants it. Anyone will take it. Notes bear interest. That's a benefit of notes. Cash doesn't. Notes are usually secured by bigger assets. So the worst case scenario sometimes becomes the best case scenario. One of the Society of Exchange Counselors members, Jim Wilson, who teaches at the National Council of Exchangers, refers sometimes to notes as a candle note. He says this note is the kind of note that you light a candle in the window every night and you pray that son of a gun defaults, because you really want the other thing. Now, you can't go lending with that, But that's the idea. Notes, sometimes the worst case on a note is the best case. Notes are also guaranteed by the borrower, so borrowers beware, and lenders understand. Don't foreclose. Sue on the note, get a judgment against the borrower, and then, oh, by the way, also be given the property. It makes it better than all of the above. And then new loans often need underwriting to generate the cash. So if you're going to go to the bank, you've got to go through a lot of underwriting. When you've got a seller carry, a lot of times the underwriting is, do you have a down payment and will you take my property? If you have a down payment and you will take their property, usually you're qualified for a seller carry. Carry considerations. So if, and I counsel clients for a living, is the seller should only take the cash and pay the taxes on the cash for the needs they have other than real estate. If you need to pay for your child's college, if you need to, pay for medical bills, if you do want to buy that Corvette, you need to pay your taxes on that money, because that's what you need to do. But all the rest of it, you should put back into real estate so you don't pay taxes. And oh, by the way, you can put it all into real estate and then go borrow the money to buy that Corvette or pay the student loan. The seller of the property can 1031 cash or paper, either way. So if the seller is really looking to get other property, the paper isn't a barrier to them getting other property. If they're going down and out, the paper actually, and by down and out I mean they're going to sell real estate and not continue to own other real estate, the paper gives them an installment sale, sort of like an annuity. I've also found that price is less important to the buyer when they have the lower loan costs and hassles of a seller carry. Usually people will pay more money for a property that's seller carried, so it's more beneficial to the seller price-wise, it's more beneficial to the buyer for the ease of the transaction. So when we're dealing with seller carries and with other, transacting real estate with anyone on the other side in exchange or buy, sell anything, the focus should be on the benefits the seller seeks and the buyer's ability to deliver those benefits. I was asked, why do they really want that cash? And how much cash do they really need? So if you got $1 million property free and clear and someone can bring a 70% new loan, and why do you need that extra 30% if you could have it in paper or something else? And it all just depends on the people and the circumstances, but you'll find that most sellers with the high net worth will say, yeah, I'll take the cash and the guarantee, and then I get some extra money, because if I sell it for cash, I'm going to go to the bank and they're going to give me 0.25% if I'm lucky. Or I can go buy stocks. So I'm now going to switch to, I moved all of that educational part up to the front instead of squeezing it in with the examples. We're now going to go over some examples that we've closed in the during this COVID crisis to show you things are still happening. These tools that we use are very valuable when we come into unusual circumstances. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of formulas, a toolbox full of them. When we need them, we take out the different tools and do what we need to. So I'm going to start with a couple of examples. The top one actually is one of your members, is a deal, one of your members who's also a client, other than Andrea. Did this transaction here just recently. It's a 9-unit in Cascade, Colorado for $1.2 million. We started with what I call a hat in hand formula, and then we ended up with a wrap with a movable second note kind of formula, and I'll go over those with you. The second example was a Colorado Springs house that was sold on a pre-COVID contract. We then did a 1031 into a triple net fourplex and land package to preserve the principal. Now, we didn't know at the beginning of COVID if we were going to have a dip and the prices in the Springs were going to go down. We assumed we'd have a little dip. That is actually not what happened in Colorado Springs. The prices have actually gone up. So to show you where we are, just to give people's ideas, here's a map of the Pikes Peak region. Lower right corner is Colorado Springs. Lower left corner, which is actually much higher, is 8,000 feet higher than the lower right corner. That's a little thing called Pikes Peak. Manitou Springs is the little town at the foot of Pikes Peak. It's the most expensive real estate in the county. And Cascade is a little town up the pass there. You see Cascade Chipeta Park. And then we'll also talk about a property up in the upper left corner in Woodland Park, Colorado. So this is the area that I-25 on the right, that's the I-25 corridor. This is, one of the fastest, most appreciating places in the country. And as of at least a couple of months ago, Colorado Springs was the hottest market in the country. Here's a picture of the fourplex on the Cascade property so that you guys can see. We actually are talking about real estate that's physical. This is it's a little fuzzy map I got. In the lower, center left lower portion, that is the fourplex. This is the 5-acre parcel. There are 5 other single family homes on it that consist of the entire property. Purchase price was $1.2 million. That's right on Highway 24 and across the highway from Pikes Peak. So the property was presented in an exchange meeting for $1,295,000. We negotiated and got under contract for $1.2 million. The original plan is what I call the hat in hand formula. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to get fully financed on a property. Okay, but some lenders don't like seller carry notes. Some lenders love seller carry notes. It depends on how sophisticated they are and how close they are to the property. That's a whole nother discussion. But anyhow, the idea is my client was going to put $300,000 down and go get a new $900,000 loan. The property, just to let you know, had a $600,000 debt on the property. So the seller in this formula would get $900,000, so they'd get their loan paid off and $600,000 in cash in their hand. Well, we would like to, my client doesn't really want to put that much money down. In fact, would prefer the wonderful infinite cash on cash return of not putting any money down at all. So the plan had been, yes, we do that, and then shortly thereafter, my client will come hat in hand to the seller saying, hey, boy, seller, I spent way more money than I should have on this property, and I'd really like to borrow of that $600,000 I gave you. I'd like to borrow $300,000 of it at these terms, and we all agree to, and then we'll go record a second. That's how we do a hand formula, how you get 100% financed and use a bank loan. You have to do it properly. Everybody needs to be notified. We're not talking about doing anything inappropriate here. They qualified for the loan, they put the money down, and then later had a second lien. Instead, well, what happened was then COVID hit, okay? And whenever we have a crisis, just my opinion, the banks are always the weak link, and the banks, once again, didn't do as great as they could have this time. And they, they're much better. And this stimulus thing, best thing our government's done, I think, for a long time. That's a whole other discussion. But they wouldn't close that $900,000 loan, is the bottom line, because they didn't really know how many of our tenants were going to keep paying, how they were going to be able to turn around and sell this loan to some third party before they ever fund it, and how they figure out how much money to charge and what interest rate. So when that happens, I just say, never mind, we don't need you, banker. A banker, my favorite expression is there's a person who gives you an umbrella when the sun is shining and takes it away when it rains. Well, it's raining outside now, everybody, so beware. The people with the umbrellas aren't probably going to be as generous with them as they used to be. So instead, what we decided to do is my client had the $300,000 to put down, so she put $125,000 of it down. We asked for the seller to carry $475,000 in a second position, junior, to a wrap of the existing $600,000 debt. And that's a deal we closed in April 2020. Okay, so let me go over the benefits of this. So you say, well, wait a minute, the seller, they only got $125,000 in cash and a $475 note. That's not nearly as nice as the $300 cash and the $300 note they had before, right? But again, it was none of our fault that the banks couldn't do it or that we have this virus. Okay, so how we did this. So like I mentioned, they only got 125 down, and more down sooner is better. That's one of the rules of real estate or money. More sooner is better. So what did they, let's go over the details of this note. So this is the $475,000 seller carry second. at 4% interest only for 5 years. I'm sure many people out here would be very happy with that note. Here, why? So the seller, why would the seller take that? Well, first of all, their option was waiting until the banking industry gets sound again, or going back on the market now, or then when nobody really knew. This did close in April, so the negotiations. This all was happening in March, February and March. So what we negotiated says, well, seller, you got 125 now. How about we spread out that 300,000 over 2.5 years, so that it helps my seller or my client have access to the money. We can do some other deals, and we have a couple of deals that should crank back these chunks of money out of the transactions, so that the client doesn't have a big output of money. Now, with all the changing uncertainty, we never know specifically about that. But so the note basically has balloon payments due. 6 months from now, the buyer needs to put another $75,000 down, okay, from this or any other source. In 18 months, 12 months after that, a year after that, they have to put another $50,000 down, and then a year after that, another $50,000. One of the great things about these principal-only notes, or these interest-only notes, when they pay that $75,000 principal now they'll be paying 4% interest on $400,000. When they pay the rest of it down, it'll now be on the $300,000. They'll be back to where they were before with the $300,000 second. But in this case, we'll have paid off a lot of that, paid that first down to the $300,000. So the other bells and whistles we put on. So the people who are selling this are experienced real estate people who understand the way I do business. The note that we have is going to allow for substitution of collateral. So this will allow my client at any time to create a second note behind the $600,000 first and go buy other property with that, because this note can be moved to that other property. Okay, we'll go over that a little bit later. Can be a whole subject for a whole other class. There's no prepayment penalty on this, no yield maintenance, none of that stuff that we all dislike. And the buyer retains a right of first refusal on the sale of the note. You should always have a right of first refusal on the sale of any of your own notes where you're the borrower. Because if these guys decide someday that instead of waiting for their $475,000, they want to go sell it to Anthony Chara for $250,000, my client will come up with $250,000 and get their note reduced. And that's possible that will happen. Right. And just like in any buy-sale, even though this is a creative transaction, it's still a buy-sell. The buyer wants the note to be really bad, and the seller wants the note to be really good. Because if it's a really bad note, no one's going to give them much money, and you might really get a discount. It's a really good note, you're not going to get a discount. So it's just like any other negotiation point. So we can negotiate on price, we can negotiate on terms, and anything in between. So that's Go ahead.
Do you also have it set up so that the seller, if they do get another offer from somebody else, that they have to share that offer with you, so you have the right of matching it?
Right. If they're going to, so I usually, and I didn't put that on here, also say in another clause it says, as well as the right to purchase the note if it's ever offered at a discount to a third party. So if this guy's a fool and puts the thing out and says, I'll take 80 cents on the dollar, and puts it up on notesrus.com or whatever the hell it is, you now got a right to buy that thing at a 20% discount. So that's a good clause to put in there as well. And then of course, keep your eye on what they're doing. Most of the time they'll call you up, and because you're the most likely buyer, just like the guy, the homeowner right next door to the vacant lot. Yeah, talk to that guy. Most likely buyer. The borrower on any note is the most likely buyer of that note. So if you ever go buy notes at a discount, the person to talk to is the borrower, because a lot of times you can lower the interest rate and you shorten the term and you boosted your yield. And people, they don't know how to do the math. So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and you may have covered this and I missed it. How do you make sure that the property taxes, or who's covering or responsible for making sure that the property taxes are paid so that they can't go into foreclosure or the mortgage is paid or whatever, those items?
Okay. Those are the same considerations we would have anytime we do a real estate transaction or have a financial instrument. We will the underlying loan, in this case, the $600,000 of existing debt, I believe is a PITI loan. Okay, so it has escrows, and if I recall right, but in general they do. The payment, my client makes the payment to the seller, who makes the payment to their mortgage company, and it's all verified by everybody. You can have a third-party escrow company do it, is a good way to do it to make sure it's all there. But yes, everybody needs to know that every payment is made, because everybody is vulnerable if the insurance goes bad. Now, taxes, of course, no big deal. You can deal with that if you have to in the future. But, everyone wants to make sure it's insured and, everything taken care of. But yeah, that's a great question. And you do need to have the details, and you have lawyers involved and have title companies involved, and make sure everything is done. Don't try and skimp on a few $1,000s to not put all your safeguards in place. All right, look at this. It's a picture of a house. This is one, I actually did go in it once after we closed it the second time, and I did go in it the first time before he bought it. So people who know me will laugh about that, but I generally don't visit property much, but I sell a lot of it. This is a house in Colorado Springs. It was under contract for a hair under $400,000 before we had a crisis. Great house, great neighborhood by University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, which is growing 1,000 students a year. So great, unbelievable neighborhood. This client bought this for $2.25 or something, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now we went and sold the thing for just a little under $400,000. So that's what your money does in Colorado Springs. So this guy sells this wonderful house, and it's it's beginning of March, or I think March 15th or March 20th or something like that. Things are, a little rough around the country. He didn't know, my goodness, do I go buy real estate with my money, or is everything going to drop off the table? So here's another little case study for you. I call it 1031 into safety. Okay, so the idea is we at that point anticipated a trough, and we may still have one in the future, and maybe next year when everybody brings their house on the market, there's still a chance that we're going to have some dip. And places around the country, some of them are, dips of reality. Colorado, it's a little different because of the supply-demand crisis we're in. But anyhow, so the seller sold a single-family home on a pre-COVID contract in March 2020. Why I say pre-COVID contract? Because we knew it was the price that the market, when it's healthy, the people wanted to live in it. It was vacant. They took it and they closed. He wasn't sure if he should close, and I said, yes, you can, because we have places we can put it. So we did a 1031 into a fourplex in Fountain, Colorado, with a triple net leaseback on that, and also a residential building site in Manitou Springs, subject to an option contract. So when I say seller here, this is the seller who sold the single family home, who bought the fourplex on the building site. But this seller, the client, now enjoys a 6% triple net and has a 2% appreciation for 2 years to bridge the crisis. So we have, and I can go into the details, but we have inventory available for sale where we will take 1031 money and do triple net leasebacks and buyback deals. So there's some bells and whistles you need to deal with in order to do this right. But the idea is that 2 years from now, that fourplex will be bought back for 2% over in a market that generally appreciates about 10%. And the guy is going to get a 6% triple net return. So on his $400,000, less what he has to pay for debt service, but he's going to get, $24,000 money in the bank for 2 years. And then he's going to get the kicker of another, $8,000, well, it's $16,000 on the back end, because it's for 2 years. And this is a deal. So we closed the house in March of 2020. We closed the rest of these in April of 2020. So his money was only not working for him for a matter of 30 days. It went to the qualified intermediary, and then it went to the property owner. Alrighty, so that's a way, and this is what he bought, was a fourplex in Fountain. So you got pictures. Tenants there, they pay all their utilities, not really anything to do. We manage it for him, and he just gets a check, like we call mailbox money, comes to his mailbox once a month. And he'd go to Tahiti and like Jim Wilson would say, come in on every third or fourth tide. So he doesn't have to do anything except collect a check. And in 2 years on the buyback, then he can go 1031 into what he likes next. And he did hold this for investment and appreciation, all the benefits. All right, and that's the thing I guess I forgot to say at the beginning. Everything I talk about is property held for investment, traded for other property held for investment. I don't generally talk about owner-occupied or user kind of property that much, except in businesses. So that's pretty straightforward. Just sell a house, you 1031 into something with a triple net lease back. So here is a means for any of you who has a property and would like to keep it, but wouldn't mind having money in the meantime. You can sell this guy your fourplex or your whatever property, do a triple net lease back, and then buy it back in a couple of years and have use of that money during the crisis. Okay, what I'm going to go over now those are deals that we've closed in March and April, and now I'm going to go over some deals that are under contract now. Because of confidentiality, I'm not going to cover any deals that are my clients. These are all deals that are my deals, and the other parties all have real estate licenses, except one, the guy that I've known forever. So I'm under contract now, and these are deals that I'm doing. We're in disposition of 2 cabins in Manitou, and we're going to take a couple of lots in Moriarty, New Mexico, and some cash for 2 income-producing cabins in Manitou Springs. And we'll go over the benefits and why would anybody do that. The next is buying 7 units in a liquor store in Manitou Springs with a new loan and a seller carry. The last one is buying 11 houses and a duplex in Belleville, Illinois, with paper on 7 cabins in Woodland Park, Colorado. And there is an opportunity for multiple investments in the debt. I've actually solved that today, but it is an example of a way to combine the benefit of return on investment with the person who wants to make money on real estate, and that's the equity, the debt and the equity partners. Alrighty, here are the cabins in Manitou Springs. These are owned by myself and another real estate broker. They're 2 little cabins. Some of this is a little outdated. The front cabin's rented for $895. The back cabin's rented for $1,100. They pay all of their utilities. Not the houses. The places have been totally remodeled. Now they're just laminate and Formica kind of remodel, but very nice. And in the place, the highest price per square foot in the county. So what we've got are 2 cabins in Manitou Springs, and they're valued at $330,000. We have a contract. We're under contract with another exchanger. That other exchanger owns a property management company in Colorado Springs, so this is right in their wheelhouse. This is just little residential income property. They have 2 lots in Moriarty, New Mexico, valued at $30,000 each. These are flat 2-acre lots, as we say, with unobstructed views. That's a translation, means there aren't any trees on them. And they have a well, they have gas available. There are other double wides on the lot that have good trees and fenced yards and all nice. We went down and looked at them. The other broker and I were happy with them, and we think they're worth $30,000 each. We have a $250,000 loan. This other broker is either going to assume our loan or they're going to come in and bring in a new loan. That's sort of their choice. We don't really care. They're also going to bring in the other $20,000 because those of you who have done the math already see that they were $20,000 short, and they're just going to bring cash. We don't have any commissions going either way because these are all brokers, but normally in a transaction, that's how the brokers would get paid, and you wouldn't get resistance on the deal getting closed. Everybody has to go do due diligence both ways. We went down to Moriarty, we checked it out. We're going to look, make sure the well's good, make sure everything's what it should be. They're going to do the same. They're having an inspection this week on the property. Everyone's going to get title insurance. Everything's happens just like a regular transaction. And here's an example of a win-win for both sides, because these lots and this money for us is profit. And so we're happy taking that. And heck, I may own these cabins again sometime in the future, but we accomplish the benefits, and every one of us feels like we're better off after we close this deal than we were before. So if anybody has land, and another thing I've told people, hey, I've got land, I'll take a second note on what you want to buy. But here's a perfect example. Our motivation was the $250,000 loan. It's got nothing to do with anything else. We just want to get rid of that loan. So we were willing to take land, and because we're sellers who were motivated and understood the benefits that the buyer's bringing. You know, this is the dynamic educational experience of what we have when we do client counseling. So we'll have a problem, and then we'll start, you know, proposing different solutions, and you know, just brainstorming, throwing every idea against the wall, and one stick. And here's an example. There's lots. Hey, yeah, we'll do that. You know, those were presented. The lots were presented. Our deal was presented. We said, hey, look, this will work, and now it's under contract. All right, here's the next one that I think most of you will really appreciate. It's a little bit more straightforward. There's a 7-unit property in Manitou Springs, and I don't want to go over all the specifics of the property because this is, you know, they're a member of the public, the seller is. There are only 2 liquor stores in town, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist. But anyhow, there's a 7-unit in town that's got a iconic name and all a property that I want to own. There are about 4 or 5 other people in town who want to own it as well. This guy's been in town. I've known him for 25 years. He owns the liquor store for about 15, and he's owned these multifamily. So I talked to him about getting the multifamilies. Well, he's not going to sell that multifamily until he gets rid of the liquor store, because, you know, he's already bought his place in Oregon on the coast with the money from the $1.5 million other multifamily he just sold in town, and he's happy, got everything he wants, but he, you know, wants to be out of the liquor store business. So, you know, I said, well, shoot, okay, well, you know, will you sell me that property if I buy the liquor store too? Yeah, I will. Liquor store was marketed by a commercial broker. It's on the market. We'll have to deal with the commercial broker on the liquor store portion of it, but the 7-unit wasn't listed, so, you know, we're dealing it all in one transaction. So I talked to the seller and I said, well, what do you want for both of them? I know what you're asking, and he was asking about $1.6 million or so, and I said, hey, man, how about I give you $500,000 in cash and have you carry $1 million in paper? And we talked about different amounts before, because I said I can give him $1 million in cash and carry paper. No, he only has a couple $100,000 of debts he wants to pay off, and that's as much, you know, 500 is as much cash as he wants to take, because he doesn't want, you know, it's a depreciating asset. He doesn't want too much cash, but he really likes $1 million of paper, and he offered me 5% interest, 30-year amortization, and I'll do in 5. But in 5 years, he said, hey, we'll talk, because chances are, you know, if I don't think I'm going to die in a few years, I'm going to go another 5 and 5 and 5, as long as I think I'm going to still be alive. So $500,000 cash and $1 million paper is how I'm buying it. Now, part of the key is how we structure this. Okay, that says $500,000 cash and $1 million paper. It doesn't say it has to be my cash. So how I wrote the contracts, and we're under contract now on 3 different deals, and I've outlined them there. We're going to have a $400,000 new first loan on the liquor store, have him carry a $200,000 second. We're paying $600,000 for the deal, but it's all as real estate. We're going to buy all that inventory in the business for $10. So we're going to buy $600,000, and so the building and all has to appraise for it, and I'm confident it will. $400,000 new first loan. Actually, I'm using private money, so it won't matter. And a $200,000 second. Fortunately, the 7 units, turns out it's on 2 parcels. It's a triplex and a fourplex, which is going to make it really easy for me in the future if I want to do a refinance on any of it and crank money out. I made the proposal. I said, okay, will you carry a $300,000 second if I only put $100,000 in front of you on this one? And I'm going to give you full 100% finance, $500,000 seller carry first on the other 4 units. So this is the structure. I've got one lender that's going to be $500,000 is that $400,000 new loan and the $100,000 new loan, and they're secured by $1 million of property, and the seller is carrying the whole $500,000 on the last one. All the seller carry notes are cross collateralized, so if I had a default on anything, it would be default on all of them. I also have an agreement that when I pay off the first loan and let him in first position on the 3 units, and I've made payments for 2 years, he will release the $200,000 second from the store. Now I still owe the money, but the store now won't have that additional encumbrance if I wanted to sell it. So this has all been negotiated. It's all under contract, going to close on July 31st. And what I like to ask people when they, and I tongue-in-cheek tease Anthony and other people, and I'm a CCIM as well. You go to calculate your internal rate of return. Well, you can figure that. Well, let's calculate our cash on cash on this, and if you guys do the math there, you'll see how much cash I put down there. Okay, and the answer is I am not putting any cash down at all, and I'm buying the 7-unit in Manitou Springs that 4 other people wanted to pay full price for. And why am I doing? How am I getting it? Because I talked to the guy. He wants to get rid of the liquor store. Okay, so I'm going to do that for him. I'm going to take the liquor store. Well, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh goodness, now I got to find someone to run a liquor store because I really just want the real estate. Well, the liquor store grossed $88,000 in May. I want the liquor store. I'm going to have an employee, and now this is going to pay all of the debt service for everything, because that thing nets over $250,000 a year that I'm buying for $600,000. And the hassle is, yes, I have the human resource problem of dealing with with running a liquor store. But what the hell? It's like owning a mini storage thing. They're just little tiny mini storages of 1 ounce of alcohol sometimes. So what's the difference, right?
You're not putting in any of your cash.
Right.
The seller is receiving $500,000 in cash, but that's coming from the $400,000 new first loan on the store and the $100,000 new first loan on the 3 units.
Correct.
And the seller's carrying back the other $1 million in paper.
Right, and those loans are easy loans to get. You see that I set up there 66% on a commercial property and what 25% on a residential property. Pretty easy loans to get. And so yeah, we've set this up to be as easy as it can. But again, so here's the example. Remember, is it about me or is it about them? It ain't about me. I mean, about me, I'm not. Yeah, about me, I'm not putting any money in. From the guy on the other side, he gets $500,000 cash and $1 million paper. He does not care where that cash comes from, as long as we structure it right. Now, this kind of deal, if you were a total stranger, it requires a bit of a leap of faith. But the leap of faith is fueled by the motivation of he won't have to own the liquor store anymore, right? He doesn't have to go every day and take the money to the bank. He doesn't have to worry and watch those cameras every night. That was his motivation.
He's going to be sitting in his new property in Oregon and having, like you said, mailbox money come in,
Right.
and he doesn't have to worry about the day-to-day operations.
Right. The end of his deck is the beach in Oregon. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
So
exactly.
one other quick question. You said that the 400,000 are both the 400,000 and the 100,000 both private money loans?
Yeah, they're going to be a $500,000 first on $500,000 or on $1 million worth of property. That, I could, if I didn't have it set up now, I could have it set up by tomorrow afternoon, because that's a loan anyone will do.
Sorry, so just very quickly, so what kind of terms are you giving or people asking for you for those particular loans in case somebody's interested in using that same?
Oh, okay. So I have no problem, and people always wonder why I would do this. And first of all, as you can probably tell, I'm not a big fan of banks. I have hard money lender buddies who I keep their money working all the time, and I'm going to give them 12% interest on those. So I'm not going to be positive cash flow on these units. And if the liquor store didn't make this much money, I wouldn't be positive cash flow on any of this to start with, and I'm still thrilled to do it, okay? Because it's not about the cash flow today, it's about the overall benefits of the deal. But I can go and get new bank loans for that stuff as well, or just refinance. So the guy I've got who's going to give me the money on demand, because I had it set up where I was telling the guy, you want the money next week, I'll get you your money next week. He wanted to wait, and it's good because we need the training and all the rest. But that's how I do it. But could I go get a regular commercial loan for that, bank loan for that stuff? Yeah, I could. Now, how are they going to be about the 100% financing? I don't know, but you know what? I don't care, because I never ask those kind of people for money. So I don't really worry about that too much, but you can refinance it, and it won't be a problem. But if, again, the deal is so tight that you can't afford 12% first position money on the deal, then it's not a good enough deal maybe to do. And so this is a good enough deal to do. The rents on those 7 units are about half what they should be. So, I'll get this all up. That's just my own logic with it. If you have any other source. So here's another perfect example, though. If we were syndicating the debt, and in fact, the people with the first loan are syndicating the debt. That's what they do for a living. And so I have somebody who does that for a living doing it. But yes, we could syndicate the $500,000 of cash into first position debt and give somebody a very safe, 10-2 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just curious how he handled the situation with the commercial brokerage who had the listing on the liquor store, since it looks like it was all done kind of as a private transaction outside of the normal commercial arena.
No, we've the broker had a sign on there. We communicated with the broker all along. I said instead of basically because for me taking a commission in money on something I acquire is just volunteering the potential to get stuck with paying self-employment tax to the government. So I just tell the seller, hey, not taking my percentage I get is just part of the deal. And you go to your guys and see if they'll take less. They don't have an obligation to, but he's the one. He has a listing agreement, and he needs to honor that, and he is. So they're going to get paid on the liquor store portion just like they normally would. And if I wanted to take a fee, I could. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to take a fee when you're buying something. And but again, here we go. Here's an example. If I were looking to making money off real estate, which is what this is, I'm not investing any cash. But yes, I could do this deal at 600 and whatever my commission would be, 1,000, because I don't know how many licensees are on here, but 600 plus a commission I could pay and take the commission back in cash. So not only could I go into this deal 100% finance, I could walk away with a few percentage in my pocket, maybe 20 grand or something in my pocket just by going to the closing. And that's the benefit of having a real estate license. So I already own a small equity in every piece of real estate that's on the market. All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Now we'll talk about a couple other things that I had motivation on one way or another. Here's they say 8 cabins. There's really 7 cabins that are occupied, and an 8th one is a shell. I mean, that's 8 cabins, but it needs total work. These are in Woodland Park, Colorado. The gross income $6,000 a month. I bought these for a lot less than this a year and a half ago. I have $450,000 of debt to one of my same people. $450,000, 12% debt, making a $4,500 monthly payment. People say, why would I do that? It's the relationship and keeping the people's money working, just the same as you do when you give a preferred return to your investors. This is the property. This is the collateral. So I've got it marketed out on the market to sell it for $750. But being who I am, I also market it a second way. I said, I'm going to create a $600,000 debt secured by those cabins that you just saw. They're valued at $750. Well, who came up? You guys might ask, well, how do we know they're worth $750? They're worth $750 because I just said they're worth $750. So, a $750 value, owner value, $600,000 debt on it. And I said, I'm going to go buy something with this. Because I want to, instead of paying $4,500 a month on these cabins that I just as soon keep, I'd rather pay $3,000 a month on the cabins. So I'm going to create a $600,000 note at 6% interest only. And why I do it at those is because I like easy math. So 6% interest, you just it's $3,000 a month, and 12% would be $6,000. So 6% interest only, secured by the cabins. The yield up there I have at 8%. If I sold this for a discount for cash, so if I sold it for $540,000 cash on a 5-year note, the person who bought the note would realize, actually a little bit better, but realize an 8%, it would really be about an 8.8 or something percent yield on just buying the note at a discount. But that's not what I'm really focused on here. I want to buy with it. I want to go buy other real estate. So that's what I did. Here are houses. And I'm still wondering if that one's a double wide or something, but I've never seen them, of course, except this much. 11 houses and a duplex in Belleville, Illinois. I've never been to Belleville, Illinois. I'll probably never go to Belleville, Illinois. It's outside of St. Louis. But here next week, I'm going to own 11 houses and a duplex in Belleville, Illinois. Okay. so how, why and how does this happen? Okay, these things are about a 7 or 8% return. They've got tenants in them. They're nothing glamorous. Average $50,000 a structure. This is sort of a modification of the creation of wealth formula, where we just create the paper that we want. So I just said I want to pay $3,000 instead of $4,500, so I made that, and now I went and bought with it. I'm now under contract to purchase those 11 houses in the duplex in Belleville. This is all by other exchangers, and actually one of them is a licensee and a member of your group who owns, who's a partial owner in the houses in Belleville. Now I need to, and it's funny because I've solved this problem now, but it shows you, how a problem comes along. I have 450 debt on the houses, on the properties in Woodland Park. That lender is always willing to move with me, and then he's about 80 something years old. He found out, oh, it's Illinois. Oh, shoot. And he looked into, oh man, the laws in Illinois are totally different. I'm gonna have to make a whole bunch of paperwork. I don't want to do it. Okay, so he decides he doesn't want to move his debt to Illinois. So instantly we have a debt opportunity for investment. So it's a 10%, 2 points, 75% loan to cost, because I'm buying $600,000 worth of houses, and I only need 450 debt. So we can sell notes from 37.5 to 450. Now back to the other SEC, Security Exchange Commission. I'm the issuer of these, so it's not a problem for me to discuss them, but promissory notes are a security. So if you're not an issuer, or if you're not a borrower or a lender, you do not advertise a note to sell to a third party if you don't have an SEC license. But here's an example. So since it's 75% and there's 50,000 average, some of the houses might be 40, some might be 60. Basically, if somebody wanted to have a note just on one property and wanted to have it go along and continue to pay as we trade through properties, that's a situation. But again, like I said, we've got it solved probably for next week, but these kind of things happen all of the time. Whenever I buy with paper and move existing debt, there's always the opportunity to replace that debt if somebody wants the debt. And so this is a way that I use my investments to help others get higher yields on the debt. I don't have to deal with banks, and I end up making pretty good money doing these deals, or I probably wouldn't be doing them. All right, so that's a very different formula where we basically, and you say, well, how do you create a new note? You literally get your computer out, and in Colorado we got a promissory note and deed of trust from the state. You can literally get on your computer and print your own money and go buy with it, and that's what I do. Different states have different rules, so those of you who aren't in Colorado need to talk to your brokers and attorneys and figure out the way you do it, but this can be done in every state one way or another. And this, I want everybody to understand that here, another opportunity I guess I should have mentioned. So Anthony, do you think I want these houses in Illinois?
No,
Right, you pretty much know I don't.
because they're in Illinois.
Right, if anybody there wants these houses in Illinois, okay, if you can solve the 450 debt problem, I will carry my $150,000 of equity as a second note, signed by you, secured by these properties in second position. I'll make it very low interest. You may not even have a payment, and we'll make it movable to move on to your next deal. Why would I do that? Well, now I've preserved my principal at that $150,000. I've gotten off my debt. I've lowered my payment on my property in Woodland Park, Colorado. And, if this weren't just me and I were doing it with clients, I'd also have earned a bunch of fees. Okay, and so I sort of earned fees because, the asking price was higher than $600,000 by a proportion similar to what I'd earn. So
So
that's...
give us an idea, in case somebody is on the line with us from Illinois. What does that mean, must move $450,000?
Okay, so if you can...
How can they help you with that?
Right, if somebody has the ability to just go to a local bank in Illinois, or any bank anywhere, Happy National Bank is the thing we like to say. Anyone can go to Happy National Bank and get a 75% loan to value on these Illinois houses, and just go with the bank. I will sell you the Illinois houses with no money down and carry the financing behind that debt, and at terms that will work for everybody, and I will preserve my principal. I'll have some accruing interest, might have some payment depending on what the other side wants to do, and then here's a vehicle that people then could trade just like I have $600,000 worth of houses with $450 of debt, because they can pretend my equity is theirs because I'm willing to just take a note from them. And
There you go.
I'd also take a note. Another way to do it, where the bankers like it better, is I'll take that $150,000 note against the property that you already own but don't want to get rid of, and I'll take that note as the down payment, and I'll be happy with that, because then you'll pay me, and ideally we'd make it an amortizing note, and you just use equity you already have on a property you want to keep, and you own 11 houses and a duplex in Belleville, and you can use these as down payments for other things. So, or you can take a little down payment and carry paper.
So basically 13 units in Belleville, Illinois, with little to no money out of your own pocket.
Right, or no money out of it. Well, I guess you're gonna have to, you'll have a few.
You're closing
Yeah,
costs. It might have
it'll
to
cost you a
go
few $1,000s. Yeah. This is the creation of wealth formula. You'll be familiar from the class, or if you want to watch that. So our YouTube channel is called 1031 Paper. I guess I should have put that on there. You just go to YouTube and look up 1031 Paper, and it'll show you a bunch of videos like this hour-long class that I think Anthony sent to you all already. But here's an example. So for instance, if you wanted to buy my Belleville houses in duplex, they would be the property on the right, the $400,000 fourplex there. The one on the left is the house that you own with the tenant in it. So I'll just go through this example, forgetting the Belleville thing. So if we have a house that we already own and we have a debt on it, and this is the house again with the tenant in it, not the one we live in, and we want to keep it, but we want to buy more real estate, we can create a second note. And in this example, we create a $100,000 second note behind a $100,000 first note on a house that's worth $250,000. So the people have $150,000 equity. They're going to spend $100,000 of that equity to use it as a down payment to buy a fourplex, and they're either going to go get a new loan, or they're going to get a seller carry for it. And so they're going to go from owning one house to owning a house in a fourplex. They're going from owning $250,000 of real estate to $650,000 of real estate. They're not putting any money out of pocket, but all they've really done is move their debt around. So the fourplex now has $100,000 worth of equity because that's what they bought with the note, but the house only has $50,000 left. Okay. So you started with 150 equity and you ended with 150 equity, okay? You got more property, that's great. You got more depreciation. I always ask people, what did you pay for it with? One definition of profit is payment for risk. You paid for this wonderful situation by increasing your risk, because owning the two properties with the debt spread out over it is more risky than owning just the one property with the 100,000 debt. But I think most people in this group would be happy to take the risk for the reward, and that's the basic creation of wealth formula. So this is also what I did. If you take away the existing, or you make the note now the whole size, you make it 200,000 instead of 100,000, and you go put 200,000 down on the new one, and the new one's free and clear, or you just buy 200,000 of property. That's what I did when I bought the Belleville houses. Where I'm buying the Belleville houses with the 600,000 debt from Woodland Park. All right, so both of those are modifications. There's an example where the same formula can be used twice in and out of the same kind of properties. So, all righty, any questions on that one? It's a cartoon. Everybody likes pictures, right? So, just so everybody knows, if you have properties you want to buy, things you want to buy, and you can find sellers willing to talk about them, I have a bunch of land I will give you as down payments onto your deal, and carry back second notes. One of them, for instance, a $3.5 million piece of land. Yeah, I'm going to need to crank $2 million out of it, but yeah, that could be done if you wanted to buy something, $6 million or something, and we could find a way to make it work. So anything from a $10,000 down payment to more than a few $1 million. These are things that can be delivered, and this is sort of normal course of business with exchangers to do things like this. So I think that's probably where I'll finish for now. I'll skip down so you've got my contact stuff again here. And again, 1031paper.com is the YouTube channel. And these other slides are in in that class as well. And this is just the process to start as we did with the seller carry and move up through the properties. But again, probably more than we should deal with. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
Yep, fantastic. And Blake is going to stick around for those of you that are here, just in case there's some deals that come up and
Yep.
people might be able to offer some insight to it. So now is the time that we're going to go into our deal structuring part of this. And
This is what I do all day long while I'm doing my